What's going on, everybody? Simple back at it like I'm checking my height. Today we are checking out why city design is important and why I hate Houston by not just bikes. If you guys enjoy this, make sure you head on over to his channel. Show them some support over there. Yeah, without further ado, let's get right into this. I've actually never been to Houston. I'm from New Hampshire. I'm the far northeast part of the country. Not exactly as far as Maine, but we are pretty close. I've definitely never been more west than like the Niagaras, so pretty excited to check this out. All right, let's go. Let's see why you hate Houston, bruh. Let's see why you hate Houston, bruh.
I'm not an urban planner, but I play one on TV. So you might ask, why do you run a YouTube channel about urban planning and walkable cities then? And I would say, what a coincidence! That's the topic of this video.
Dun, 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 dun.
I grew up in a car-dependent, car-infested city called London. To avoid confusion on this channel, I usually refer to it as fake London or sometimes something derogatory. By the time I was a teenager, I was pretty bored of fake London, so I wanted to get out as quickly as possible and see the rest of the world. So while I was in university, I took advantage of internships to live in several different cities in Ontario, as well as in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
During this time, I also drove across the United States 7 times and across Canada once.
Wow.
And I stayed in dozens of cities and towns along the way. Apart from some minor differences, all of these places were pretty similar. There's an overwhelming sameness between almost all cities in the US and Canada, primarily due to their car-centric design. In the end, I decided to live in...
Now you'll notice that the one restaurant that was in every single one of those shots is a Don Don's. I'm just saying.
Downtown Toronto.
I'm just saying.
This was a place that was interesting to me, but I didn't really know why at the time. I just knew I liked it a lot more than suburbia. Incidentally, when I lived in downtown Toronto, I was able to easily live car-free, and this allowed me to save huge amounts of money when I was young. After the dot-com crash of 2000,
Pets.com, because pets can't drive.
Oh yeah, oh this is my kind of party. Oh yeah.
I was laid off from my first job out of school, and
Is
I
that
was
really
left
a commercial?
unemployed for a very long time. When I finally did find a job, it was at a significantly lower salary than what I was earning before. There's simply no way I could have gotten through that time in my life if I had to own a car to buy food, to apply for unemployment benefits, to go to job interviews, and to go to work. This is one of the reasons why I'm so...
Huge shout out to the dude just sleeping in the window over here. What's that, Kung Fu Tea Shop?
It's
Yeah,
to go
all
to
the way
job
down.
interviews and to
Watch
go
it,
to
puts
work.
his head down.
This is
He's
one of
like,
the
"Screw
reasons why
this."
I'm so hostile towards car-dependent places, because they are burdening everyone with thousands of dollars per year for the cost of an automobile just so they can work and feed themselves.
And what's really crazy is, look how big some of these parking lots are that take over places. And what's even more crazy is, once that Dillard's and Nordstrom Plaza goes out of business completely, right? Those buildings just stay there for years and years and years because it's a piece of property, someone owns it, and they want to sell it to the next person, entrepreneur, who wants to build it into something. But the problem is you have these structures that just sit there and rot. And it doesn't give anything back to the community. You never get anything back from the community. There's so much property that's bought and sold on a daily basis that finding new pieces of land calls for tearing trees down, unfortunately. It's all just a power trip. That's in reality, that's what it boils down to. I own more land than you. It's been the American way forever, though.
This is fundamentally wrong. Nobody should have to own a car just to participate in society, and designing a city that way on purpose is criminal.
You'd think.
But what really opened my eyes is when I got a job that required me to travel. Suddenly I was being sent to the UK, Germany, Taiwan, Japan, and all over the United States.
That's
I
really
started
cool.
realizing that there was a whole world of interesting cities out there, and they weren't all the same car-centric sprawl of the GTA or the Bay Area. During this time, I traveled excessively for both personal and business trips. There was a period of several years where I wasn't in the same time zone for more than about 3 weeks at a time.
Wow.
One thing this insane amount of travel did provide me with was the opportunity to see how other people lived all over the world. I wasn't going to places as a tourist. I was going to where people actually lived and worked. I was taking local trains in Tokyo. I was stuck in rush hour traffic in Boston. I was taking the S-Bahn local trains in Tokyo. I was stuck in rush hour traffic in Boston.
I'm going to tell you right now, Boston rush hour absolutely sucks. I'm about an hour away from the Massachusetts border. Boston's probably about another hour outside of that. And if you want to get anywhere in Boston, you better leave extremely early in the morning. Make sure you don't miss your exit. Like, make sure you don't have to get off the highway and get gas or anything like that. Like, when you're on the highway, especially in Boston, make sure you have your destination. You are completely prepped to get to your destination and potentially even home. Because sometimes stopping for gas after is just a nightmare as well. It sucks. Shout out to Boston, though. Let's go.
I was taking the S-Bahn in Berlin.
I didn't see the
I was
garden
taking
there,
taxis for remote factories in Shenzhen. And I was going between these drastically different cities on a nearly weekly basis. It was amazing to me to see how different all of these cities were and the different ways that people lived. But at the time, I never really thought about why this was the case. Like most people, I assumed it was for cultural reasons or due to the weather and local environment, because I was completely ignorant about urban planning. That all changed during a trip to Houston. I was in the middle of an around-the-world trip. These are discounted tickets for traveling to multiple cities, but you need to travel only in one global direction, always east or always west, until you've flown all the way around the world. For most of my trip, I had taken public transportation in the cities I had visited.
I just want to say real quick, the plane thing was still running through my head. That is one of the scariest times I've ever been on a plane, is when they come down just a touch sideways and the whole plane just starts shifting. Woo! Yeah, that's some butthole puckering stuff right there.
But I'd been to Houston many times before, and I knew I needed to rent a car. However, I had met up with some coworkers for this leg of the journey, so we shared one car between the three of us. We had a day off on Sunday, and my coworkers had taken the car. When I was unpacking in my hotel room, I noticed my suitcase was falling apart, so I searched for a luggage shop nearby. Thankfully, there was one 800 meters away. No problem. I decided to walk there. That was a terrible, terrible mistake. I exited the hotel to find that it was on a street with no sidewalks. None at all. So I crossed through the adjacent parking lots. It is disturbingly common to find places without any sidewalks in American suburbia.
Even more disturbing to find places with a lack of crosswalks. Like, you have to walk so far to get to the next crosswalk. They normally have them at each set of lights, but sometimes in smaller towns, they'll have them at like every other set of lights, which means you're walking 2 blocks that way to get to a crosswalk to cross because there's cops. And if they see you, you're going to get a ticket. Which is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. We haven't... jaywalking. Dumbest law ever. Dumbest law ever. Like, if I need to cross the street, I'm crossing the fucking street. You want to give me a ticket for it, you're dumb.
But I had grown up in a car-infested city, so I was used to it. As I got out onto the main road, there was a sidewalk. I didn't know it at the time, but this road is what Strong Towns refers to as a strode, a street that is designed like a road, and in doing so, is expensive, inefficient, and dangerous. This walk was pretty uncomfortable. The weather was nice, but there were no trees to provide any shade. The landscape was boring, and I was surrounded by asphalt.
Yep.
All of the businesses I passed were far in the distance, behind giant parking lots, and the signs were all oversized and only meant to be read while driving. In a place like this, you're walking next to polluted air and the constant noise from high-speed vehicles, and you always need to be...
And the constant risk of people not paying attention, running up over that sidewalk, and literally running you down. Because it happens quite often.
alert for any cars going in and out of driveways.
We have the most cars, supposedly, compared to other places, I guess. But we pay less attention when driving. Not even my bald spot can figure that one out.
Drivers are only looking at oncoming traffic. They are not looking for pedestrians.
Nope.
And in America, people will blame you if you're hit by a car.
Yep.
Stoplights are long and there are too many of them. And because cars can turn right on red lights in America, you have to be hyper aware when crossing this road.
And that little walking man symbol doesn't mean shit when they have a green light. Because, like you said, you're allowed to take rights on red here. But even more importantly, people are watching that green light and not watching the crosswalk sign, when they should be having the crosswalk signs up near the green lights that people are turning and looking at so that they can see to check for pedestrians. But the design is very off, like this man's saying. The whole design of how we have everything just kind of sucks. But we've been built into it for so long. How do you change something like that? Let me know in the comments. You guys had an idea or ideas on how to change the structure of American roads. That'd be very interesting. And let me know if there's places out there that are trying to do it too.
This is the kind of pedestrian experience that people who never walk anywhere think is acceptable. But then I got to this spot and the sidewalk just ended.
Yep.
No warning, no alternative. It was just gone.
Here's the bank.
But there was a well-trodden path through the grass, so I followed it to this bridge, where there was nothing. As I shimmied along the curb next to the guardrail, with high-speed cars and trucks passing by me, I thought about how ridiculous this was. I was balancing on a few centimeters of curb while crossing a 28-meter bridge with 7 lanes of car traffic. There was no consideration given to anybody who wasn't in a car, and there was no other alternative for people walking.
Yep.
At that moment,
There's a bicycle, but you don't want to be on that in this kind of traffic. You're bound to get hit. Or just bound to have people acting stupid. You know, they'll see you on a bicycle and they'll pull way out in the other lane, block traffic for everybody else. Now you feel like an ass because you're the person on the bicycle that this other person, when you shouldn't, right? When this other person's acting like an idiot because they pulled way out because they don't want to hit you, so they have to pull like way out over the other side of the line because they can't tell how far their fucking car actually goes.
decided that if I lived through this walk, I wanted to live in a place that was the exact opposite of a place like this.
Hell yeah.
When I made it to the other
Just want to point out this sign
the
real
exact
quick.
opposite of a place like this.
That sign says, Lifesavers, Auto Accident Specialists, open 24/7. Thank God you didn't need one, brother.
When I made it to the other side, there was also no sidewalk, of course, and I crossed through some more parking lots to get to the luggage shop.
Yep.
Needless
Empty,
to say,
mind you.
I took a cab back to the hotel. Yeah, I took a taxi to go 800 meters.
I don't blame you, man.
In the United States, over 45% of car trips are 3 miles or less than 5 kilometers. That's insane. Europeans assume that Americans drive everywhere because they're fat and lazy, but it's not. It's because these trips simply can't be done any other way.
Yeah, we have to.
When I got
Otherwise, it'd be like we just colonized this motherfucker again, and it would take us all day to walk. Like, if I wanted to go to the city, let's say, okay, and I wanted to walk there, it took me 2 hours to walk 5 miles at a pace that wouldn't kill my legs and hips and ankles by the time I got to the destination. Now, mind you, my truck had broken down. I walked 5 miles home. Took me about 2 hours, a little bit less maybe, I can't remember. I have a pretty quick stride, so. But regardless, I don't want to walk another 20 miles in one direction just to get to a store. Like, if I have to go to like a Walmart, say my headphones break, I am literally fucked. I can order them, have them delivered. No problem. That's an option. Cool, great. And that's all well and good, but to be able to get out and to go places is basically not an option. It's just not an option here.
back to my hotel, I started reading about how cities were designed. I learned about car dependency, and I learned about walkability. And I learned about how these places have changed over time, and how some places have designed their cities for humans,
Wow.
not just for motor vehicles.
That's an amazing
One of the things that
transformation.
really upset me is that the desolate asphalt-covered cities I had visited in the US and Canada weren't always this way. I was told that these cities were like this because they were designed for the car. That's not true. They weren't designed for the car.
No.
They were bulldozed for the car.
They were designed for the people who bought them because, like every single other building that's standing that's a high rise right here, someone owns it. It's a piece of their property. They wanted to put an office building to make the most money off of said property. They needed a parking lot. When you have multiple buildings next to each other that need parking lots, you have zero trees. We save a couple sparse ones and to make it kind of look like we're still in the middle of some, suburban forested area, but in reality you're not. You're straight up in the middle of the city. Like, and there's people in America that'll tell you, no, that's not a city, it's my town.
Look at these pictures of my hometown of fake London. This city is beautiful.
Yep, we have pictures of one of the well-known places, I guess, in New Hampshire. It's one of the first places you hit when you come over the Massachusetts border, called Nashua. We have some very, very old pictures of Nashua, and it looks very, very similar, believe it or not. Cars, the people, the signage, like the whole nine.
Now it looks like this.
Yeah.
This is a picture of Houston in the 1970s. No,
Wow.
It wasn't bombed. They did this to themselves. This used to be a compact, walkable city that was just as good as those in Europe or Asia, and they
Wow.
destroyed it. When you see a place like this, you think the developers must have got away with something. But literally everything you see, right down to the color of the paint of the lines in the parking lot,
I mean, they're even
are
putting a
defined
new
in
gas
some book
station
of
in.
regulations.
They've even subdivided this side of the parking lot on the left-hand side and allowed someone to put a gas station in the front, which means the person who owns the property is basically just renting out that one little section to a gas station while they're renting the rest of it to somebody else. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And those regulations are overwhelmingly designed to make places that are only accessible by car. This is entirely by design, and it's entirely by choice. It didn't need to be this way, and it doesn't need to stay this way. And that is why I became interested in urban planning. My walk in Houston was not the first or the last terrible experience I would have walking in an American city, but it was the most memorable. And I have absolutely zero patience for apologists for this kind of car-centric, anti-human design. I clearly wasn't the only person who had ever walked here, as proven by the path through the grass. You can see people walking here on Google Street View.
Yeah.
In a place like this, if you're too poor to drive a car, then you're literally forgotten about. And this situation hasn't changed at all in the last decade, which is why I was able to get this video of it. There's no excuse for this. If you have enough room for 7 lanes of car traffic, then you have enough room for a sidewalk or a bicycle path. This is what a 28-meter bridge looks like in Amsterdam.
And what's really crazy is their argument for the whole thing is, oh no, if we increase the lanes, right, we'll have less traffic because more cars can move. But what they don't do is redesign the bridges, redesign the roads, pull some land away from people and give it back to pedestrians. That's the number one thing that doesn't happen. Instead, what they do is they rip up the sidewalk and they add another lane for traffic and then give you this little white strip to walk in. And it's like, well, here you go. Don't get hit by a car, because if you do, it's probably your fault anyway, because you're walking on the road.
As a sidewalk and a two-way bicycle path on both sides of the road.
That's not right.
And yeah, this area in Houston is very suburban, almost 30 kilometers from the city center. But that's no excuse. The area is lined with businesses and shops, many of which are staffed by minimum wage workers. In America, housing prices are talked about a lot, but the most important metric is housing plus transportation costs.
Yeah.
How are these employees supposed to get to work? Do they all need to drive? Can they even afford to do that? Here's what an industrial park in the middle of nowhere looks like in the Netherlands. The street is only 2 lanes wide, and there's a beautiful 2-way cycling path that can be used for people walking and cycling.
Yeah, and our industrial parks are, 4, 5, 6, or 4, sometimes 5 lanes, because there's always that middle divider section, which could have potentially been the sidewalk split up, right? But they're abandoned. We have literally a whole mall in the city nearest me that's abandoned. I think there's 2 stores that might work in one end of the plaza itself. But for the most part, the rest of the whole thing is abandoned. and it's been abandoned for a very long time. Now, some might say, it's an opportunity thing. When the right buyer comes along, great. But I almost kind of feel like the state should be buying property back to help create jobs, to tear this crap down and leave it a desolate lot. Give it back to the wilderness for a minute. And then if somebody wants to come in and buy it, great. But the problem is you take all the value, because once the building's gone, all the hard work's gone, all the, the pavement's gone, you just devalue your property. So you can't. There's no chance. These properties will literally be here for the rest of our lives unless someone comes in, buys it, demolishes the whole thing, and gives it back to nature. That's it. That's all you can do. And people aren't going to do that.
North Americans balk at
If I had the money, you bet your ass I'd be buying small pieces of land, demolishing everything in it, and planting trees back in it. Like, there's no reason to have this much concrete. It's garbage. It's waste. It's ugly as all sin. I hate the city because there's no trees. I live in the trees. I chose to live so far away from the city just to be back where there was trees and not a lot of traffic and 2-lane roads only. Like, I gave up a lot to be able to be where I am. But it's because I feel happier being in a quieter place, is what they call it. They call it, quiet life. It's not so hustle and bustle. Everybody's hustle and bustle in America, though.
designing pedestrian and cycling infrastructure anywhere but in busy downtowns. But here, employees of the nearby factories and warehouses can use these safe paths to get to and from work, and for other trips like going for lunch too. There is always a long list of excuses people make as to why nobody walks or cycles in North America. But that's what they are, excuses.
Yep.
The real reason is that it's not enjoyable, comfortable, or safe to walk or cycle in a place like this.
I've walked and cycled most of where I've gone locally throughout my life. I didn't really own a car until about 18 years old. I was in a car accident at 17, so it kind of strayed me away from driving a little bit more. So it took me a little while to get my license and to actually get behind the wheel of a car. In America, a lot of parents buy their kids their first car. I didn't have parents like that. That wasn't my home style. So, is what it is. But I'm definitely one to bike. I'm definitely one to walk. I'd rather bike and walk. I did it for fishing all the time. I'd walk miles and miles and miles just to go fishing. I loved it. But the reality is that at the same time that you say it's not it's just an excuse, it's really not, because if safety's involved, there is no excuse for safety. So at the same time, it's just not designed for people to walk. Therefore, I'm not going to walk, right?
Yeah, the weather is bad sometimes, or there might be hills. But don't you think that this guy would appreciate a sidewalk? Houston is one of the worst examples of urban sprawl. For my Dutch viewers, if Amsterdam were as sprawling as Houston, then a circle including Alkmaar, Leiden, Utrecht, and Lelystad would all be connected by continuous car-dependent sprawl. There is a right way and a wrong way to design a city, and this is decidedly the wrong way for so many reasons. And by the way, the barbecue joints in Houston are good, but the best brisket I ever had in my life was a Mighty Quinn's. And you know where that restaurant is? New York City.
New York City?
Get a rope.
But the sad part is, Houston is not even the worst city in the US, and the city is actually doing more to change things than many other US cities. For example, Houston recently deployed a completely new bus network literally overnight, and it has led to significantly higher ridership.
Literally overnight. So it's not that they don't have the planning for it, it's that the city commissions don't want to incorporate it. But when enough people complain, now they have to allocate the money from the state to put towards those things, to pay those drivers to do these things. They don't have a choice. And that's where the American people get so lost in everything. We fight, we argue, we want to kill each other. But in reality, all you have to do is sign a piece of paper with a friend, and get a bunch of other friends to sign it, and guess what? Things change. Ta-da! It's America. Like, that's how it works here. Everybody just wants to whine and bitch and complain about it, though. It sucks.
Street Films made an excellent video about these changes. They're really great. Bravo to Houston Metro for doing this. Houston has also been installing several bicycle lanes as well. And the city has removed minimum parking requirements for 2 downtown neighborhoods in an attempt to build a more walkable, mixed-use downtown.
That's good.
Speaking of mixed use, it is a common myth that Houston does not have zoning. It is true that the
Now, you saw the people that were walking through the crosswalk. Either they were walking on a do not walk. No. It is a walk sign. But you'll notice that it is also a green light. In what mind do we put a walk sign, go ahead, on a green light? See, now this is why, this is a big reason why we can't have kids walking around by themselves. They don't pay enough attention. Maybe they're just not taught to. Maybe we just don't have the city design to teach kids how to pay attention that way. I'm not entirely sure where the breakdown is, but I do know 100% that there is a breakdown between pedestrian safety and green lights on walk signs. You're going to see the people walking through the intersection, and we just continue driving, right?
It is a common myth
See?
that Houston
There they
does
are.
not have zoning.
And that's why people get hit, is because there's people that do walk in these crosswalks that do not pay attention, or they'll walk when they're not supposed to. But the unfortunate part is that cars have the right of way on green lights. Pedestrians also have the right of way. So who has the right of way then? The vehicle, because it'll run you over and kill you. I mean,
It is true that the
sucks.
city
It's
does
so
not have a
stupid.
thing called zoning, but they have lots of other restrictions, such as minimum parking requirements, minimum lot sizes,
No
and
standing.
other regulations that cities would normally put into their zoning codes.
Like I said, no standing. Standing is sitting in your vehicle on the side of the road with it in park while you're in it and it's running. There's a lot of places in New York where you're not allowed to stand. How the hell you pick anybody up? How does that... Now, it could be defined as maybe it's a substantial amount of time, but even still, I'm in my car. It's running. I'm pulled over the side of the road. So even if I wanted to pull over and check a map, and I was really lost, and the only place I could park was a no standing zone, technically you could get in trouble for that too. Sad. It's so sad. But we don't have laws about other things that actually matter, right? We just have laws about people parking their cars on the side of the road while it's running. Maybe you're not in it. Maybe the car is just sitting there running. But pollution, I guess, is the number one reason. I can guarantee you that that's what they'll say too. It's to cut down on pollution.
They also have city-enforced
Land.
deed restrictions that limit what you can build on certain parcels of land.
Yep.
That allows, for example, only single-family homes to be built in many neighborhoods.
Yep.
In short, Houston has all of the worst parts of a zoning ordinance, they just don't call it zoning. City Beautiful has a great video about this if you're interested in learning more.
Okay.
But despite all the work that is being done, Houston has a very, very long way to go. The city recently completed a multi-million-dollar project that is called a protected intersection for pedestrians. Does this look pedestrian-friendly to you?
No,
It is the
it looks like you have to walk a further distance. Actually. And just because they put the little pretty island with some little bushes and trees in there doesn't mean you're going to get off of that thing. Like, you will get stranded on that island if there's enough traffic. People won't stop. Sometimes you'll get a nice person. Everybody behind them honks because, you know, God forbid one person stops to let the person off the damn island. But that thing ain't gonna... You might as well bring a tent and a backpack, some water and food. Like, you're probably living there for a minute.
intersection of 2 6-lane roads, and it
I've
literally
seen it
has
happen. I've had it happen
high-speed
to
slip
myself
lanes
in
for
a
drivers so
smaller
they can
town.
bypass the traffic light when turning right. Slip lanes are insanely dangerous for people walking.
Yep.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Because now instead of having the stoplight on the walk symbol, which it normally should be, now there's no walk symbol, there's no stoplight. And yes, people are supposed to pay attention. But when you're timing a car out and they speed up at you to get you out of the intersection, how the hell do you time for that? You can't. People get hit.
That engineers would
time.
purposefully design slip lanes in a place that's supposedly meant for pedestrians and being billed as pedestrian friendly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wrong.
I guess it's better than walking through the grass and across a death bridge with no sidewalk, but come on.
I walk across the middle of the road. So I'm the type of person, right? A lot of people will be like, oh, well, that's an asshole move. You're going to get hit. The thing is that people actually stop. If I have to cross a road, specifically like this, I will literally walk out in the middle of the road slowly with my hand up, stopping traffic. And some stop, some don't. I'll stand there. I will literally stand in front of cars and make them stop to let me through the road. Is it an asshole move? Yeah, probably. Do I care? Not in the least. To be quite honest, not in the least. Especially when it's raining, it's snowing, it's freezing, the sun is beating down on you. I don't care. Because you're in a car. I'm not. Roads are designed for you, not me. So that's why I do it. I'll cross the street wherever the hell I want to. Give me the ticket. Please give me the ticket. It's stupid. It's so stupid. I don't know.
This is what
Just
counts
me,
as
though.
pedestrian
If
infrastructure?
I'm getting somewhere, I'm getting there.
And of course, Houston is also home to the Katy Freeway, the widest freeway in the United States. In 2011, $2.2 billion was spent widening the highway to over 20 lanes. And as a result, travel times out of downtown have increased by up to 30%.
Go figure. When you can allow more cars on the road, more people will drive. What they thought, like I said before, what they thought is if they widen the roads, less people would drive. The sad reality is, if they widen the roads, they'd be able to hold more cars. But the sad reality is that when you can hold more cars, there's more cars that will come because now you can hold more cars. So everybody wants to take that way because it's faster. Word gets around pretty quick. What does happen is it decongests most of the other side roads that you would normally take to get to the same place. But still,
This is a massive sum of money that could have been better spent on public transit or other alternatives to driving that are proven to reduce car
I want
traffic.
to move to the Netherlands.
But instead, it
at
was
this
used
point.
as an expensive demonstration of induced demand. And no lessons have been learned here. The city and state are planning an additional $7 billion on highway expansion. This project will demolish 4 religious buildings, 2 schools, 168 homes, 1,067 multifamily units, and 331 businesses that employ almost 25,000 people. It is literally
Just so that people can drive freely. But nobody ever thinks of it. They're like, yay, roads. People are so stupid.
never ending. It's often said that the truth about a city's aspirations isn't found in its vision, it's found in its budget. So despite the millions spent on pedestrian improvements that somehow also include faster turning lanes for drivers, Houston is spending billions on car infrastructure and is fully addicted to car dependency.
Yep.
I just don't know how you undo the damage caused by a place designed like this. How does
Can't.
this ever become sustainable, financially or environmentally? And to me, the most sad part is that people who have grown up only knowing car dependence don't see a problem with this. To them, restricting cars is literally taking away their freedom because they have become so addicted to car dependency that they are incapable of understanding that it is possible to design places where not only do you not need to drive,
They're too lazy to walk. That goes back to the excuses part. They're too effing lazy to get on a bicycle and ride it. And it does go to the car dependency thing.
you won't even
It's
want
sad.
to drive.
It's so
And that
sad.
lifestyle can be better in almost every way.
It's
My travels
incredibly
gave me the
sad.
opportunity to visit every major city in the United States, most of them multiple times, and as a result, I have absolutely no desire to go back to any of them. But those experiences shaped the way I think about cities, and they're what ultimately resulted in our family moving to the Netherlands, the country that has the best cities in the world. And hey, if Houston weren't so terrible, we never would have had this YouTube channel, so thanks, Houston. I owe you one. I'd like to thank my supporters on
love how
Patreon
you
who
put
pay me
that
to
part
relive
in
the
there
bad
at the
old
end.
days. If you'd like to support the channel and get
Help
access
me
to
live
bonus
on the
videos,
through the bad
visit
old days. Let's go.
patreon.com/notjustbikes.
I love watching this guy. I love his videos. Awesome content. Awesome knowledge, too, coming out of these. And like I said, I had never gone to Houston before. I've never been to Texas at all, actually. So to see that it is very similar to the city that's in New Hampshire or the city that's in Massachusetts or the big city that's in New York, it's like, oh, I've seen it now. Cool. That's probably why people don't really care about traveling too far. It's because, like, why do I want to just go to another city where there's a bunch of people that I just don't know, get lost in traffic that I have to drive around in for hours and hours to figure out where the hell I'm going? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Let me know what you guys thought about this one down in the comments below. Definitely make sure you go show your support to Not Just Bikes. Awesome creator right here. Above all, though, make sure you guys stay safe, stay healthy, stay positive. I'll catch you on the next one.